So, I have been thinking for the past few weeks that I want to make, that I want to make a video blog, maybe like weekly or something like that, just talking about restaurant etiquette from a waitstaff perspective. I feel like a lot of people don't, I'm going to take these out. I feel like a lot of people don't understand or really grasp how difficult and stressful it can be to work in a restaurant. It can be incredibly stressful, like I said. It can also be like emotionally draining, frustrating, enraging, and really fun all at the same time. So, yeah. I think I'm going to do this regularly. This is just like my introduction video, essentially. I guess I'll just start by saying that my name is Jamie Volva. I've been a waitress for 26 now. 7 years. I've been a waitress for 7 years. I had no intention of ever being a waitress. It was something that just kind of happened. I had moved across the country and I had been working in an adult bookstore in Las Vegas, where I'm from. And then I moved to Rhode Island and I started working in an adult bookstore there. And it was corporately owned, and it was just awful the way it was run. I was like being severely underpaid, and the people I worked for were just fucking assholes. But I also had a second job as a host at a Denny's, which I got because my good friend Crystal worked as a server there. So I wanted to quit this shitty porn store job I had, which, I'm not saying porn store jobs are shitty. I absolutely love the one I worked at, and the porn store I worked at in Las Vegas. Yeah, this one company I was working for, I was just like, no way. So, like, before I quit, I, like, went outside and I grabbed the phone and I'm just like, hey, this other job fucking sucks. Can you give me, like, more hours and maybe some serving shifts? And they were like, totally. So, that was how I started serving. Surprisingly enough, it turned out to be something that I was decent at. So I've been doing that for about 7 years. I have worked for Denny's. I worked for Denny's for a few years, and then from there I got a job working for Dave & Buster's. I don't know. I know they have them some places. I know their commercials are played all over the place, but I worked for them. And then I now work in a small diner, privately owned diner in downtown Olympia. So, yeah, I've just kind of been all over the place. I like serving. I like the freedoms that come along with being a waitress. And by that I mean, like, the schedule is flexible, and you can make decent money depending on where you work. Working for Dave & Buster's, I made a lot of money. I only worked 3 days a week. I worked 3 days a week, but it was something like, it was usually between like somewhere between 35 to 40 hours I would work in those 3 days. I would usually do 14 hours on Friday, 16 hours on Saturday, and then 10 to 12 hours on Sunday. So I crammed like all of my hours into a 3-day weekend, but I made a lot of money working for them. Never been fired from a waitressing job, never really gotten in any trouble or anything like that. I never really had a lot of complaints from my tables, aside from like just really difficult people just being difficult. But generally I like being a waitress, so that's why I do it. I'm the kind of person who doesn't really do anything that they don't want to, within reason. I mean, obviously there are some things in this life that you just have to do whether you like it or not, and you just have to fucking suck it up. But as far as jobs go, I feel like you have a little bit of a choice there. So, yeah. Being a waitress definitely has its downsides. Your money can be not so consistent as far as tips go, which is really difficult. That can be really stressful, especially when you're very dependent on them. A lot of people don't know that in some states the minimum wage for waitresses is much lower than it is for like normal minimum wage. When I lived in Rhode Island, minimum wage for, I was serving in Rhode Island, minimum wage for servers was $2.89 an hour. So, and also you have to claim your tips. So that $2.89 an hour I was making was being taxed for all of the tips that I would have made. So my paychecks were like non-existent. I didn't really get paychecks. What I did, it was just like, oh, here, this will fill up my gas tank. Okay. So I was incredibly dependent on my tips, and I struggled a lot. But I made it, and that's okay. Yeah. Being a waitress can also be hard too, because people can be. Waitressing is not so easy. You're trying to make people happy. There's like you are the last person to like deal with the food before it goes to the table. Or to handle the food before it comes to the table. So it has to go through a line of other hands. Like it comes from like the distribution center, whether it be like Cisco or whatever. I'm just speaking from like on larger scale. I know there's restaurants that do like local blah 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 whatever. But like corporate food providers or whatever, like Cisco, so they bring food, and then or we buy from cash and carry or Smart and Final or whatever, and then it goes. All the ingredients are put away on the shelves, and then the prep cooks take them out, and the prep cooks assemble things, and then the cooks like make them and prepare them and set them up, and then the servers take them out. But if there's anything wrong with that, something doesn't taste right, something isn't cooked properly, whatever, I have to deal with it. I'm the one who gets the brunt of it. And a lot of the time, people like look at you and be like, well, my food's wrong, so you did this wrong. You don't know how to do your job, so you don't get tips. And it's really very frustrating, because a lot of the time it'll have absolutely nothing to do with me. So yeah, I guess why I'm making these videos is that I've been a waitress for a while. And I think I'm a pretty good waitress. I've always been well regarded and viewed as valuable by my employers. So I think that I do an okay job. I think I picked up a pretty good understanding of what to do and what not to do when you go out to eat. I know that some people totally get it, and some people are completely oblivious, and some people are just fucking assholes. I was raised by a a waitress. My mom has a degree in social work, but she didn't make enough money doing that, so she was a waitress for like 30-something years. But she never really, surprisingly enough, she never really taught me any sort of restaurant etiquette, how to tip, nothing like that. Never mentioned it at all. So I feel like there's a lot of people who just don't know, and I think there's got to be some kind of voice in that. And I know, I'm sure there's like other blogs and things that do it, but I'm gonna do it my way because that's what I do. Yeah, I'm not really gonna talk much about it right now. Like I said, this is just an introduction video talking about why I'm doing it. Yeah, so I'm gonna end that with tip your fucking waitress. At least 20% of the bill. If you don't have money to tip, don't go out to eat. Getting your food to go doesn't like make you exempt from having to tip, because in a lot of restaurants, most restaurants, when you get a to-go order, the to-go tip that you leave would go to the cook, not the server. And also tip. I'm gonna talk about this next time. I'm not gonna talk about this now. This video's long enough. Anyway, just tip your waitress. It's important. You might not realize why, but I will explain to you why. I hope you all are well, and I hope that you are having a great day, and I'll see you next week.